And welcome to another episode of Insiders. We are your host, Denzel Snipes, and the numbers man himself, Sean Rusty. Let's go ahead and get it on real quick. Let me get my banners running. So, we officially, to those of y'all out there who happen to have the day off tomorrow, we're on 4th of July weekend. So I'm pretty sure you're going to be firing up the grill, waving your flags, everything like that. That's cool. All we ask that you be safe and everything. Spending quality time with your loved ones. It's always cool. But before you go and do any of that, all right, okay, most importantly, if you're watching from YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button, and also hit the notification bell for all updates on new episodes. Also, follow us on all of our socials. We are at Sideline Sports Entertainment on Facebook, X, TikTok, and Instagram. And also, there's our website, sideline-se.com. We got great shows on the network. Mondays, we have Top Rope Talk with myself, this man, and Tyler Sumner. Tuesdays, the Game Ready Podcast with Coach Ernest Allen, and also the flagship show, the Sideline Sports Show. Wednesdays, we have Cubfidential with JB Ellis and Brian McCray, also with Jason Chartrand and Nick Bockins. I'm, of course, behind the boards, Sports Insiders. Tonight, tomorrow, Friday, with Coach Mark and Jeff Burkhoff, the Ravine Rundown. So all Dodgers fans, they'll be coming on at 5:30 Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Eastern on the Sideline Sports Entertainment Network. Oh, and we also got our other shows too, as you see down at the bottom. We got AC Sports Live, the Rubio Method, the Robert Shea. We got other shows coming onto the network. JTPOV is supposed to debut any day now. And Sean, the two new shows, the Cardinal Show and the Orlando Magic Show.
Hopefully next week on Wednesday, we'll have the Cardinals show joining the baseball schedule. And then I think we're looking at actually Thursday for adding the Magic show with John Denton. He's a Cardinals reporter now, and he's a former Orlando Magic reporter.
Awesome. Yep, more new shows coming to the network. So come aboard, because we're building fast. So tonight's episode, and I understand the World Cup is on right now. But here's about the NBA, because just when you thought last week was something with trades, this week said hold my beer. So we got more NBA trade news from this past week. So how about the 76ers acquired Jaylen Brown from the Celtics? Boston will receive Paul George plus draft compensation. Also in other news, actually, first of all, let's get that out of the way. Sean, your thoughts about this trade, man? Who do you think won out in the trade, and what do you see as far as the future for both teams?
Yeah, so I mean, you kind of figured the writing has been on the wall since the failed Giannis for Jaylen Brown trade. But this is comparatively to even say Desmond Bane and Mikal Bridges, who are definitely players a tier down from Jaylen Brown. They're all-star type players, but they're not, superstar status like Jaylen Brown. And comparatively, the Sixers got a steal here. And, the backcourt now. So this is what we see, right? And we see it in every league, the NFL, MLB. It's a copycat thing. Once someone finds something that works and it looks like the trend is going to change, we all jump on board. Right. So what we've seen here this offseason is a lot of go into an emphasis on the backcourt. Miami obviously is one of the few teams that has gone the other way and put some emphasis on the front court. But if you look at, what the T-Wolves did, what the Sixers have done here, they've really solidified the backcourts. And then if you look at Portland, even, and we'll talk about that here, grabbing Ja Morant when you already have Damian Lillard. Right. And that may be more of, hey, are we going to move Lillard off the ball and save some of his legs and not have him come up and down every time, with the ball in his hands, or now we got more flexibility and we may actually be moving off a couple of these point guards. But everybody's going heavy point guard, but the deal comparatively to some of what we've seen, absolute steal for Philadelphia.
Yes, indeed. And we're talking about a team who came back from down a 3-1 series deficit to knock out Boston in the first round. So most definitely a steal for Philadelphia. In other notes here, LeBron James has informed the Los Angeles Lakers that he's leaving La La Land. So he will be wearing another team's colors next season. Sean, your thoughts on where you think the King is going to end up for
And just
yet
real
another
quick, I
season?
meant to, and it's really rare that you see teams like this in the same division, in the same conference, trade stars of this nature. I know Paul George is on the downslope, but for the Celtics to trade him where you're going to see him at least 4 times a year and maybe 11 if you meet in the playoffs and go 7 games, I wouldn't want to be dealing with Jaylen Brown on revenge and you're going to deal with him every quarter of the season. But in terms of the Lakers, I think they've actually done I know it was LeBron's choice to kind of walk away from it. But I think it's actually going to be good for the Lakers. They've opened up a lot. I think it's going to help Doncic out. I think what they've done to go get Kessler here is big for them. It's big for Doncic. The re-signing of Reeves is big. I think you're going to see you may see a more fluid Lakers team without LeBron there.
Yeah, indeed. This is most definitely LeBron letting Luka know, hey, man, it's your team now. I know people are going to say, like, well, we only got Luka and LeBron for one season, not even a full season because Luka got injured at the end of the year. But heavy rumors swirling around that LeBron could be wearing blue and gold next season, joining an aging dynasty. What it looks like, this move most definitely would have them run for just one more ring. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think him joining up with Steph Curry or wherever he decides to go, even if he goes back to Cleveland, I think at this point he's deciding, like, who do I want to have fun with for one more season? That way, if it doesn't work out, at least I'm still on the court having a good time. And I think it's going to end up being the Golden State Warriors. And they'll probably bring Draymond Green back because Green purposely opted out to give them flexibility to go do this. So I think you're going to get Draymond Green back there. Now, that's a dynamic that's going to be interesting because LeBron doesn't put up with anything and Green doesn't put up with anything. It'll be interesting to see if they butt heads at all on the court, kind of the way Durant and Green butted heads. Now, obviously, the personalities are much different. Green and LeBron's personalities are much closer than what Green and Durant's obviously very laid back, chill temperament guy. So it'll be very interesting to see how they mesh if there starts to be problems, within that unit. But I think it'll be entertaining to see LeBron and Curry for 82 games, no matter no matter what they do, whether they're the 5 seed, the 1 seed, wherever they end up. I think it'll be fun to see for fans, especially for LeBron's last season.
It will, absolutely. And you know what? Speaking of the Lakers, and you mentioned it, they did acquire Walker Kessler from the Utah Jazz in a major signing trade. Kessler is expected to sign a 4-year, $130 million deal. Utah will receive 2 unprotected first-round picks and 2 future pick swaps. Also, Kawhi Leonard is headed back up north, headed back to the team he won a championship with. So the Raptors acquired Kawhi Leonard from the Clippers. LA will add B.I., Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, and draft compensation. That's not a typo, that's his name, Grady Dick. And draft compensation. So your further thoughts on Kessler signing to the Lakers and also Kawhi Leonard going back to Toronto?
Yeah, so as we talked about with Kessler last week, I have a little problem with the amount of the contract based on his small sample size. So I think Utah actually did a great thing getting out of this. I do think he's going to grow because of Doncic. I think he'll grow more with the Lakers than he would have with Utah this season. I don't know if this new move necessarily pushes his ceiling up, but I think he gets there quicker because of the talent around him in LA. But for Utah, I think it's a great move to get out from what under is a very risky contract for a guy, like I said, with a very small sample size of success. I understand this is the new NBA and contracts are bigger, but I don't know if I take a full swing at this just because he's a big man that you need to pair with Doncic. I understand you got to keep your stars happy, but I think if you let the market settle, there may have been other options out there. But I do like the fit, so we will see how they pair together well on the court. In terms of Kawhi and the Raptors, honestly, I don't understand what Toronto sought out to do here because you're going to have to extend Kawhi. You're going to have to give him more money. And honestly, for me, I would have rather kept the young and up-and-coming star in Brandon Ingram. Now, I know Kawhi had basically kind of, there's other stuff that reasons he needed to get out of the LA, right? There's other stuff with his Clippers contract that he had to get out of LA, right? No one wants to talk about this, but there's other stuff. So had to go. It's funny that we went as far north as possible, and yeah, he makes that team better for sure. But with Kawhi, it's always the same deal. It's kind of like Paul George and Joel Embiid. Do we get a healthy Kawhi or do we get 50 games of this guy? And if we get healthy Kawhi, then Toronto's a force in the East. If you get 50 games of the guy, then Toronto is actually worse without Brandon Ingram and an injured Kawhi.
Yeah. A small question before we move on to the next player. If Kawhi Leonard ever had a child and it was a boy, you think he'd name his kid Rico?
It might be Drake.
Yeah, indeed. Well, let's move on here. The Portland Trail Blazers acquired Ja Morant from the Grizzlies. And when we talked about forming that backcourt. Now, keep in mind here, okay, because this is interesting. And I said on the Sideline Sports Show earlier this week that this is going to be hinged upon Dame Lillard's health. We already came out of an era that had one of the most dangerous backcourts in CJ McCollum and Dame Lillard. Now you've got Dame Lillard and Ja Morant. Your thoughts on how that backcourt is going to? Because me personally, I said, would it really move the needle? I mean, they go from a playing team to the 6th seed, maybe. They're still in the tough West. They still got to see the Spurs. They still got to see Denver.
Losing Grant is a big chunk of their front court in terms of their current size. That's why I think they're going to move off of somebody, whether it's Holiday or one of the younger point guards. I think they'll run with Morant and Lillard. I do think you're going to see them move Lillard off ball, especially with the shooting skills that he's really, his range is even sometimes further than Steph Curry's range in terms of just like planting and jumping and doing a jump shot. It's really crazy what Dame has done, range wise with his game. But it's one of these things where it's like, does this matter? Is it okay to go small unless you're facing like the Spurs? Because we've got DeMar DeRozan now, who's a power forward, who 10 years ago was a shooting guard. This is happening around the league. This is around the league that we've got guys from shooting guard that have now slid down to power forward. And they didn't grow. They're still 6'8". So you really wondered if they are going to at least experiment with this a bit. But I do think it's going to be Dame off ball. Not. I believe Ja will be the point guard. Dame's going to be off ball as the shooting guard. But it will be interesting to see what they could try to go get for Holiday, because you figure that's the most movable piece there. But at the same time, if I'm looking at them, I'm looking at Ja Morant. Is he going to behave for us? I'm looking at Lillard. Is he going to be healthy? Would I rather remove my younger point guard and keep Holiday? That way, if these guys do have problems, at least I have that veteran as the emergency plan. But they definitely have to. Right now, they're carrying 5 point guards, so someone's not going to be there at the start of the season.
They're most definitely gone. And moving on a little further here. So the Suns actually ended up acquiring Miles Bridges from the Hornets. Received Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and future draft compensation. Meanwhile, out in Dallas acquires Santi Aldama from the Grizzlies for A.J. Johnson and future draft compensation. And then also the Hawks acquired Devin Carter from the Kings. Sacktown receives draft rights and future second-round value. Your thoughts on these three?
Yeah, these are some smaller deals. The Suns deal I don't like, taking on that big contract in Bridges, and you really just handed Charlotte some nice pieces and picks for whatever reason. So someone in Phoenix at the front office clearly really loves Miles Bridges, but I just don't. I don't see it. I would have left it alone. His contract is really, for me, it's way too big for a player of his caliber. And honestly, if I was the Hornets, hey, you're offering me what? This and draft picks just for Bridges? Yeah, take it all day. I don't even care what the extra at that point. Once you said Grayson Allen, I'm shipping Bridges away.
Mm-hmm.
Especially absolutely. with what the Hornets have done. They re-signed the point guard they got from the Bulls, Colby White. And they traded the ball. So you figure this is a move that makes sense for them. You've got Allen who can shoot. O'Neal brings a little bit of a presence there, and then you get the future draft pick compensation. And now you really get to build around Knuppel and Brandon Miller, who obviously both had outstanding seasons last year.
Yes, absolutely. And then also, we'll move on to our notable NBA signings from this past week. We got quite a bit here. So the Thunder re-signed Isaiah Hartenstein on a 3-year, $75 million deal. Warriors will keep The unicorn, Kristaps Porzingis, on a 2-year, $40 million deal. They also retained D'Anthony Melton. The Lakers will add Quentin Grimes, Sandro, M last name,
Yeah,
McKellis.
good luck.
Yeah, he knows who he is, Sandro. And Colin Sexton around their new look core. The Celtics will add Mitchell Robinson on a 3-year deal. They're going to bring in Mike Conley on a 1-year deal.
And I'm going to pause
Mike
you
Conley.
here.
Go ahead.
This is how ridiculous money is in the NBA. Mitchell Robinson, who will be getting fouled in almost certain strategic games, especially in the playoffs, just racked in another $50 million 3-year deal. Absolutely insanity.
Just to be the guy to get fouled.
He basically had to stay off the court as much as possible in crunch time in the Knicks series, unless they really, really needed him out there. They tried like death to avoid it. Trust me, the Knicks are happy he's on Boston. They can't wait to deploy the same strategic stuff the Spurs did to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And with that being said, the Heat retain Aikens, and they're going to add Tim Hardaway Jr. That'll be a hell of a backcourt out there in Miami. The Bulls add Norman Powell on a 2-year deal. Suns add Luke Kennard for shooting purposes. Pistons sign John Collins. They re-sign Kevin Huerter as part of the front court and wing reshuffle. The Spurs will sign Tobias Harris. It'll give them another veteran front court option. Your thoughts on these signings?
Yeah, so I mean, the Pistons, you figure there's a few things they're going to have to do there because Durant is still out there testing the waters as a restricted guy, so they can match the offer there, but they've got to be prepared, and that means you got to take some shots early, even if it eventually means that you waive your rights to Durant because you filled it in other ways, but you've got to be prepared for that possible departure. We kind of knew once Giannis was traded to Miami that Powell was not going to be able to stay there. Right. The numbers weren't going to work. So you extend Wiggins, you add Hardaway on the veteran deal, and Miami's going to have more of that because of Giannis. They're going to have more veteran minimum deals signed. And then I love the Harris signing for the Spurs. I really wanted, as a Magic fan, I wanted him back in Orlando, but the Pistons got markedly worse, losing Tobias Harris, because if you look at all of their series, there were several games in all of their series that without Tobias Harris, not only do they don't have a chance to come back and win those games, but they probably lose those games by almost 20 plus.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, to round out the signings and re-signings, the Pacers signed Kelly Oubre Jr. They're going to add wing scoring and athleticism with that signing. The 76ers added Dean Wade and Ariel Hukporty after moving for Jaylen Brown. The Houston Rockets will add Marcus Smart and Bogdan Bogdanovic to strengthen their veteran depth. And then finally, Sean, your Magic bring back Nikola Vucevic. The Blazers will re-sign Robin Williams III. The Knicks re-sign Landry Shamet and Jose Alvarado. The Knicks re-signing Shamet and Alvarado was an absolute must in my opinion. And then also, seeing as my team got brought up, adding Marcus Smart and Bogdan Bogdanovic. Bogdanovic, underrated, one of the prolific – excuse me, I can't talk today. Prolific shooters in the league, and then also in Marcus Smart. I like the Marcus Smart signing because, for one reason, not only is he a veteran, but when we moved on from I'll tip my tongue now. God dog it, I can't talk today. When we moved on from Sean, who's the guy that trolls LeBron all the freaking time?
Dillon Brooks.
Dillon Brooks, yes, Dillon Brooks. All right, sorry y'all, I had a big dinner and my mind scrambled. Anyway, when the Rockets moved on from Dillon Brooks, okay, that actually was he was a defensive pest. I didn't depend on him to give us 20, 30 a game or anything. He's not that type of guy. I mean, he could go off for 20, 25, but he's more, you bring him on the court to be, a defensive pest. That was, I actually did not want to move on from him, but I understand he did what we had to do. He gave us, 2 years in Houston. It was great. By adding Marcus Smart essentially replaces him. Marcus Smart's a former Defensive Player of the Year, So now this is Ime Udoka adding in that defense necessary to open it up to get Alperen Sengun and Amen Tom, Kevin Durant the ball and everything. I think there was a great thing with these two, but your thought on everything, Sean?
Yeah, so 76ers kind of just filling in some depth there, and there's some nice pieces. We'll see how they work out. I like the Smart signing, and it just feels like he's just been around forever, right? He just seems to always stick somewhere. The career is not ending until he says it's going to end.
Right.
So you love guys like that because those are the types of guys that bring different stuff during the playoffs, even just from a vocal standpoint. Like he can be an impact from the bench. One thing for me, I know the Magic are still young, but I can remember the Mikal Petruses who, while they only played 17 minutes, their impact on and off the floor, was felt because of the veteran leadership. So I think that's something you get with Smart. No matter where you bring them, no matter who's in that locker room, you get that. You get a calming voice when Durant gets upset. Hey, KD, come on. We need you here. You get a lot with Marcus Smart, a lot more than just the 17 minutes he'll probably average this season. In terms of the other ones, I don't love the Vucevic signing for the Magic. I understand it. They needed to replace Mo Wagner, who went to the Brooklyn Nets, leaving his brother for the first time in their careers playing separately. And Vooch was willing to come here on the veteran minimum, which obviously is huge based on the Magic being over the first apron. They also, did something very sly that I think people were surprised by. They waived Jonathan Isaac, but they refused to spread out his dead money over the 7 seasons. And then they brought him back at $6 million cheaper. So now the Magic are underneath certain thresholds. They can use their trade exception. They can use more of their veteran minimum money. And then, they've got a little more flexibility overall during the season for trades. But that was, I don't think anybody expected them to not spread it out. I think everybody expected we're just going to waive Jonathan Isaac, not bring him back, spread out this $8 million. And they said, absolutely not. We'll eat it right now and we'll bring him back on a discounted deal. So we'll see how that works out, especially with the new coach there. It is the Spurs defensive coordinator, essentially, the guy who ran their defense, Sean Spencer. So we'll see how it works out because Isaac is a defensive presence. Obviously, Vooch is not. So we'll see how that works out and what they do with spacing and things like that. But I do think Vooch helps, when they're in that offensive woes, because that's one of the things with the Magic right now is they don't have that guy that can stop that 23 missed shots in a row that they had versus the Pistons. And Vooch is one of those guys you can dump it into, and you can almost guarantee 1 or 2 chances he's going to get 1 or 2 of them to go. So you add a guy like that, maybe add something that can stop some of those bad runs, and we'll see how it works out. But overall, as a Magic fan, I'm not in love with it from the defensive aspect.
I know, I totally get it. Now, let me ask you a question. Are you more not a fan of it because you really wanted Tobias Harris back?
No, because the center, obviously losing Wagner, we were going to have to fill that, and I like that he spreads the court the way Wagner did, because Wagner could shoot the 3, so you couldn't replace Wagner with a guy like Robinson. You don't want to do that because then the Magic, who already struggle with 3-point shooting, even get worse at 3-point shooting. So I think Vooch, hopefully will help that, and it's like I said last year though. When they tried to solve their problems with Caldwell Pope 2 years ago, you can't do it adding 1 shooter. Last year, they traded him out for Desmond Bane and didn't really, Kane ended up being a nice surprise. He can obviously shoot a little bit. But it's like you can't do it 1 shooter. So now you've got Bane, you've got Vooch, hopefully an improved Paolo from 3, hopefully an improved Wagner from 3. But they've got to go get some more shooters if they want to keep up with, this NBA.
Right, absolutely. And so with that being said, we got about 6 minutes left in the show. So we got a new segment, Sean's segment, Becoming a Sports Agent. I'm going to give him the floor here. This is the MLB Draft Week edition. Sean, take it away.
Yeah, so we got about 12 days here before day 1. The MLB draft is now done over 2 days, 20 rounds. I know a lot of people know it used to be 40. Now, during this week, what an agent is usually doing and what I'm doing is, my phone is going the other way in terms of making calls. I'm trying to evaluate what rounds, especially for our current clients, I'm trying to evaluate what rounds, usually like 16 through 20, look like, and then seeing what opportunities make the most sense if we get to after the draft. And I think that's the biggest thing is, not putting your guy in a bad situation. I believe I mentioned it last week. We had a client go to the Dodgers. Now, he's made the most of it, but it wasn't our hand-picked situation. It just happened to work out that was the offer that came by, and he had to go do the most with it. Now, as we get past this weekend we'll quiet down for the holiday naturally. We'll pick back up, and kind of things will really pick up next week. And then the weekend leading into the draft, teams will kind of be feeling us out. It'll be the reverse. Like, well, how does your client feel about the situation in the environment and being either in Arizona or Florida for rookie camp? Because unlike some other leagues, the NFL obviously sends their guys right away, but they don't go into games right away. When you get drafted here, you will go into some sort of rookie training, but you could also then see some single A time at the end of the year, which is a little different from most of the leagues where you get to go into preseason before, cutting your teeth a little bit. So that's why we look at the depth charts and opportunity too, because we don't want a guy to get drafted and then not play this year unless they told us that up front, like, hey, we're picking him. This is our developmental plan for him. And then, we can't disagree with it, but at least we know what we're walking into in that situation. Teams have different ideas of development. As an agent, I could tell you personally, like, I don't like certain teams. Like the Orioles have notoriously been bad with minor league pitchers, overusing them, not keeping track of inning counts. I had a client there who had 300 innings before he was like 24, which is just, it's bad for the younger age. So, and we look at that too. If I have another pitcher, I'm not going to want him to go to Baltimore. So there's a lot of things we look at as we're evaluating, teams are evaluating. And then come the day before the draft, I'm kind of trying to predict what we see on ESPN, mock drafting it out and seeing what may happen at the end of the rounds, and where I think we may start getting calls, or what leverage I can play against teams that have called us based on how many picks they have or where they have picks remaining. And I can say something like, hey, we have 2 teams that have called that are in front of you. It sounds pretty serious that they're going to pick them up. You may lose your shot if you don't take them the round before versus waiting to take them with your round 17 pick. And then finally, for the players who won't be drafted, we quickly shift to phone calls right after the draft, seeing who's got open spots. MLB teams will usually invite another 15 to 20 guys. Some are just one-day tryouts. Others are longer extensions of opportunities. But we do try to be quick about it, because once you're about 48 hours out of the draft, unfortunately that client is probably looking at playing some independent ball and getting some better film to come back, next cycle, which is just essentially next year. And for a client that doesn't make it, at least they would be qualified as a free agent. So in spring training in January would be when they could be looked at again. They don't have to wait for, the next draft cycle in July. And then the goal on both sides, for teams and for me a little bit, is to create some chaos. I push a little bit, given generalities about, maybe a team is ahead of you or behind you or how many picks they have. And they may be a little bit more, saying something about an opportunity, and then I look at the depth chart and what they're saying about that opportunity just doesn't make 2 + 2 add 4. So I can go back to my client and say, hey, they're saying this, but they also have these 3 guys at your position around the same age, so I'm not too sure. And that's really just to protect the player's value, to maximize his value come contract negotiation time, and then to make sure that, when we're getting leads where clubs are coming in, that they're not just blowing hot air to grab another body of a guy they think may have a chance, but they're really going to waste a couple years of his time by having him roadblocked and blocked by a lot of other bodies that they already had in their system and probably have a preference for.
Indeed. And Sean here's got a whole lot of education being an MLB and NFL sports agent himself. This will be a mainstay. He's got his own segment on here. He's got his own segment on Top Rope Talk. Speaking of which, Top Rope Talk, come on over on Monday. Us 3 will be in the house. Myself, Sean, and Tyler Sumner. We'll be talking about Raw. We are on the road to SummerSlam. So pay close attention this next month. When things are building up, it's going to be a lot of hot talk. Also, more hot talk on this show and every other show on the Sideline Sports Entertainment Network. That is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe. Tune in to Sideline Sports Entertainment. Follow us on all of our socials and our website, www.sideline-se.com. So with that being said, we will see you in 7 days for more Sports Insiders. Peace!